with the latest in technology news and views. This is TechWrap, the podcast.
Welcome to TechWrap, the podcast. We're online at techwrap.net. We are on the socials as well, and you can email us anytime. Mail at techwrap.net. Talking technology with Trent, myself, and Will.
Hello, how are you? Another week of tech. Big week it's been. Some exciting new launches out and about the place. So looking forward to getting right into it.
We can get right into it. There, several major events, many big brands, plus your quick heads will be quite interesting as well.
Yeah, got quite a few of those lined up. And I know there was one event that stood out to most this week, and especially maybe the Trent of a few years ago might have been a lot more eager and keen to watch this event than possibly the Trent of today. But yeah, what was it?
Well, the Trent of today doesn't even get up at 4 o'clock to watch this thing. We're talking about the Apple press conference, the long-awaited iPhone. It's about a month behind the usual targets that they usually have for these phones. They usually traditionally release them in September. And what I would find myself doing usually was heading to the Henty Machinery Field Days, which is a big thing out here in the country. And then a day or two after that, you'd go in and get a brand new iPhone if you were keen to be buying one.
Would you get the iPhone from the field days? Would there be an iPhone stall in the mud there?
No, the field days would go Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then the iPhone launch happens on the Friday.
I think we should let the listeners in that have no idea what the Henty Field Days are.
Yeah.
Because right now it sounds like it could be a tech event, but it couldn't be farther from related to technology.
Yeah, big machinery field days. So for all your farmers with their farming gear, people who live in rural areas, all these people converge on a little country town called Henty. Actually, they don't converge on the town. They converge on a site which is about 5 minutes away from there, and it's just a big flat piece of farming land that has a heap of roads on it, dirt roads. And they just set up stalls and show off their products, and you can buy food, and you can...
And they have a really catchy theme song.
Have races and all sorts of things. Yeah, they have a theme song that they've kept for about 30 or 40 years as well, because it's been going for a long time.
But no iPhones there.
No iPhones, and the event wasn't held this year, of course, due to COVID. But enough of that one.
Do you think that's why also it was delayed a little bit later because of COVID? Do you think?
Yes. Yeah, most definitely. COVID has held up, both the development and also the sourcing of parts to be able to build these phones. So they have held it off, and admittedly they've only held it off a month, which was 4 brand new iPhones. So they haven't learnt from their previous years in regards to having a scattered selection of devices, but. So they've got an iPhone 12, which comes in a couple of different sizes. They have a mini version, which is 5.4 inches. The main iPhone 12 is a 6.1. And then, of course, they have a Pro model, which I guess ups it in the feature sets. All of the phones are largely 5G capable, putting them in the league of many of the Android handsets that have already been released. 64 gig, 128 gig, 256 gig sizes. They have, the dual cameras on the rear. The front face also supports a night mode this time. And they've also, I noticed, got a LiDAR radar in the Pro models as well. They're aiming this for photography and being able to, do a lot more low light photography and being able to do it with much more detail than they previously have as well, and probably a bit more detail than some of the Android variants that have been using the main sensors to be able to do this. So
essentially, if you get this phone, you wouldn't even need a a separate camera, right? You, like, say goodbye to DSLRs, mirrorless cameras. Is that what the go
Well,
is?
well, I like it's the cameras in smartphones are getting really good. And for most people, I think a smartphone camera is a good option. For people who are doing it as a day job, you wouldn't ditch your device, your DSLR camera. But for an average photographer, I think these are getting just as good for taking most point and shoot shots. Your stills, your landscapes, your portrait photography, they all work pretty good. Um, it's certainly very capable. Two of the variants are, I guess, on pre-order from uh, the end of this week, and they will be on sale in a week or two. And then, of course, the mini versions and the Pro Max that's out later on. That's about November at this point in time. But they've all got, say, upgrade to their processors like they usually do. There's strengthened glass on the cameras and the cameras on the actual phones themselves. Much better than their previous variants, they are saying, which would be good for the people who like to walk around with no cases on. The dual cameras on the rear, which is wide and ultra wide, and two front cameras.
Hmm.
It supports 4K video, the surround sound that they always have, and the spoiler for some people, they do not come with a charger or headphones. But
What do you
then,
mean they don't come
who
with a
uses a
charger?
charger or a headphone?
How do you charge the phone?
Well, you'd traditionally be using the wireless charging functionality or your previous charging options if you've got a charging
So if
cable
if
already.
you didn't have a wireless charger, you have to go out and buy a wireless charger.
But if you didn't have a wireless charger, there's a chance that you might have a cable already. Because if
Yeah,
you're
true. But like,
if you're a devoted Apple fan, you're already going to have a Lightning charger. They do include a Lightning to USB-C cable in the box, but no charger.
yeah, that's weird. Like ever since the beginning of time, you'd buy a
They've
new
always
phone
had
and
it.
it would
Yeah.
come with a charger. And not just Apple, but any phone. It's like a
Mm.
stock standard thing. Are they just trying to cut costs? Like,
That's what they're saying. They're saying that they'll reduce environmental impact by not having these
yeah,
in
right.
the case, alluding to the fact that there is a lot of people who just buy the next model as soon as it comes along, and that's their mode of thinking. They're not thinking about John Doe, who's never had an iPhone or hasn't had an iPhone for about 3 or 4
Well,
models,
I was
and
going to
then he
buy an
purchases a
iPhone,
new
but
one.
now that I've heard about that, I'm not getting one. So
I don't believe you.
sorry, Apple. I think that's wise. I have two questions. One,
Yeah.
what's like the major differences between the phones? Is it essentially just the size we're paying for, and maybe a faster, more RAM, bit quicker? But like, would you notice any of that? It's essentially you're paying for how big you want the screen, right?
Faster processor.
But would you really notice? Like, it's like you can go to an iPhone 8, 7, and they're zippy. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah. It's faster processor, different cameras, different screen technology. They've upped the game in their screen. They've introduced the 5G, which some people would benefit from
That was
as
my next
well.
question. Do people care
Mm.
about 5G yet?
Well,
Like in
I
Australia, at least, do we care? Like, is this a selling point for us? Because it's not for me personally. I don't care for 5G. I wouldn't buy a 5G model of a phone right
I
now.
I do see people who have been interested in 5G, although I think the vast majority of people that I see looking at getting 5G technology, they're not wanting it on their phones. They're wanting it, as some sort of plug-in USB stick or portable device that they can hotspot with, so that they can take advantage of what you really do on 5G. Because you could have it on your phone, but what are you doing apart from just watching some YouTube videos or jumping on
Yeah.
Facebook
Who's
or searching for
downloading
something.
huge amounts of content over 5G that
Mm.
they need these ridiculous speeds? Like, ugh. But then you could say the same from going from 3G to 4G. But like, I think
Yeah.
4G is quite significant, right? Like if you're on a good network like Telstra or something, you can be getting over 100 megabits per second down easy.
Well, you say that, but there are areas where I've actually had a reasonably good service on Optus, where I haven't had.
No, Optus, yeah, good.
Yeah, there's people around my area who have had issues with Telstra with download speeds on 4G, and nothing's really changed. And then I'm zooming along at 60 to 80 megabit, and that's quite fine. That's comparable to most people's good old NBN connections at the moment.
Yeah,
So
and it's interesting what you say about the 5G connection being used in other devices, other methods, and then you talk about people who are like 5G is brainwashing us all or something, or probably a lot of routers in your home right now are probably operating on a 5G bandwidth as we speak. Like if you're using a wireless internet connection, there's a high chance that your router is outputting 5G right now. I know my router, it has dual 2.4 and 5G options. So to get a better signal
down.
into my front room, I switch over to the 5G and I get an extra 20 megabits per second down because it's a stronger connection.
That's technology and branding confusion though, because 5G in those wireless devices is talking about the fact that it operates on 5 gigahertz,
Yeah.
and a certain part of the 5 gigahertz bandwidth. 5G in terms of mobile phone technology, it's more of a step up in the equipment they're using in the mobile space. They don't necessarily operate the network on 5 gigahertz.
Yeah,
So
right. That's interesting.
it's more of like a branding. It's a bit like
So
how
why are they trying to? What's the whole 5G thing? Just because they're gone from 3 to 4 to 5, they have to just next will be 6G.
yeah, like an evolution in titles and an evolution in technology as well. They're using a lot of small cells to achieve, fast speeds in certain areas. So it works a bit differently to, I guess, how 4G is distributed. But yeah, an evolution in titles a lot is what this is all about. And it's a bit like how when Telstra first launched 3G, they called it Next G. Nobody
Yeah.
else had a fancy name for it. It was just Telstra. But it's all in the marketing. Maybe
Well, the
there are
marketing
people
isn't
out
doing that great for them.
there. You know, with this new iPhone and the new options, and I think there will be some people who are sold on 5G. One thing that I am impressed with this year is the fact that you know, despite all the different models of iPhone that are there, they've actually started to bring down the price on what they've been charging for these handsets.
Ooh.
Because if we look at last year's release, and there was less phones released last year, but they were pitching towards the $2,000 mark for all of the handsets. Now you can get an iPhone 12 Pro or a Pro Max from between $16.99 and $18.49. It's still a lot of money. The
Is that
Mini is
US or
cheaper.
Australian?
No, that's Australian.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
Australian. That's still a lot of
This
money.
is
But
ridiculous. This is so
it's a
ridiculous. Well,
it
they
is a
live
lot
in.
cheaper than it was though. And so if there's someone who is looking to do an upgrade who's about 2 or 3 versions behind, or, surprisingly 5 versions behind, they might find that this is a good option. Talking about 5 versions behind, they've gone back to that square looking body as well. Which is certainly going to stand out in the range of mobile phones they're on sale at the moment, and give some people some memories of their older handsets.
So as a current Android user, this
Mm.
launch doesn't sway you in any way towards Apple. There's nothing there that you're like, I must go back to the iPhone.
I am 2 years into owning an Android phone, and in terms of where they are at with their features, I have had a phone which is 2.5 years old in terms of where it is in the market, and its functionality is comparable to all of these things essentially.
Hmm.
The only thing I haven't loved about having this particular Android phone is the curved screen.
Oh, what?
Uh, I'm not a curved screen fan. One thing that annoys me about a curved screen, can be the angle that you look at the screen on and the way that the picture is, the picture looks on the side. And also, if you want to get a screen protector for these things, to get a good screen protector, you can have a bit of a battle depending upon what you've got. And because, I've chose Huawei, um, it's been harder to find a decent screen protector. And then when I did,
Yeah.
I couldn't
You have to
locate
go
them
to
months down the track.
you have to go to China to get one. You know what? I
Yeah.
saw an interesting stat as we're talking
Mm.
about expensive phones, and it was something like 90% of people surveyed said buying a new phone every year was a waste of money.
I believe them.
So we've gone
Yeah.
back in the day, we got so excited about the new phone every year, and because it was affordable and it wasn't, you would be on a plan or you'd be on a plan. I remember back in the day, and it would be, you'd essentially be getting the upgrade for free or paying maybe $5 or $10 more for the handset per year. So it'd be
Yeah.
negligible costs. And you'd essentially every year you'd stay on the plan for 24 months with your provider and you'd get the next generation phone coming out. And that was really cool. So we could actually get excited, or we could trade our old phone in and only pay like $200 more and have the brand new phone. But now, because the costs has just gone up through the roof, it's not really feasible to do that anymore, because your phone's probably worth like maybe $800 now, but the new phones are like $1,600 if you want the high-end model. And there are just so many phones out there. And because they are released every year and they are quite similar to the year before, is there a thirst and a demand for new phones every year? Or are they hoping to piggyback off those people that are on those 2-year cycles? So they're not actually targeted to the iPhone 11 people. They're actually targeting the iPhone 9, 10 people. But I know people who are still on iPhone 7, 8s, and it does the job perfectly fine for them, like for the majority of people.
I do know of people on older model handsets. I don't think there's as big a thirst for Apple iPhones as there once was. You could say there's less of a thirst for all of the phones generally these days. The big hype train that used to be surrounding these things is not so much anymore because of, I guess, the monotonous strain of announcement cycles.
Yeah, and it's not just
They're always announcing another
Samsung.
one.
It's Samsung, Apple, but then like we talk about these two, but how many other manufacturers are there out there that we don't even really get news from? Like Sony make phones, Motorola make phones,
Oppo.
Huawei, Oppo, what is it, the Xiaomi? Those Xiaomi Mi phones, or their Note series, and it's like, and then there's probably like another 5 more on top of that. What was that other one? It doesn't matter. There's tons more, and there's just so many phones out there. It like, what do I do? Like, do I just get an iPhone? Do I get the Samsung? Or do I explore into these other phones and maybe find a really good bargain and deal? Because like, they've been overlooked. No one's buying them. They get severely discounted. And you could find a phone just as good as the iPhone 12 or, the Samsung Note 20 or the S20 series for maybe $700-800, but it's still running Android. The specs are similar, but it's just not one of the main contenders. And I've been actually found myself lately looking at some alternatives, because I've always been a Samsung Note user ever since I switched over.
You have
on the Note. Can't even remember what it was, Note 2 or 4. I think it was the Galaxy Note 2 was my first phone, and I was 4, and then 6, that was 8. Honestly, I've lost track, but it's been Note for the past 10 years at least. And I'm now like, do I need another Note? Or should I explore one of these other brands out there? And like recently, and I don't think it's just like, I don't think it's just me. I think there are other people out there that are like, this is ridiculous, paying close to $2,000 for a new phone, even over $1,000. I remember 5 years ago, less than 3 years ago, we were, approaching the $1,000 mark, and we're like, this is getting crazy. Back in the day, it was like $900, $800, $900, and then it was unheard of to have a phone priced over $1,000, and now we're getting close to $2,000. It's ridiculous. And it's interesting because Google have also unveiled their new Pixel
They
phone, the
have.
Pixel 5. Quite a soft launch. I didn't really see a lot of hoo-ha fanfare. It's just kind of out there now. And the most surprising thing with this one is last year they did the Pixel, I think it was the 4, then they had the 4A, and then they had the Pixel 4 XL. So they had three
Yes,
different
yes.
versions, one with a bigger screen. And this year, they've thrown all that out the window. They're just releasing the Pixel 5, one size. This is all you get. This is the phone for the year. And it's like a mid-tier spec phone. It's not super
Yes.
high-end compared to Samsung or Apple. It's super just average. It's good. It's not a bad phone by any means, but compared to the $2,000 phone, it would be a mid-tier phone. But then, do you know what also comes with having a mid-tier phone? A mid-tier price.
It
So
does.
this is going to be sub
does.
$1,000 in Australia. I'm not too sure of the exact figure, but definitely under 1,000. And what more do you need? So Google have gone like, we're not doing these multiple confusing lineups. We're not throwing you an upgrade model to try and bait you in by, oh, the XL's only $150 more, so you might as well get that one. You know what I mean? That sales technique. This is the phone we're releasing this year. It's got good specs. It's going to do everything you need it to do. It's got a good camera, good battery life. It's going to run everything. Stock Android, super quick, super clean. Small screen, small-ish compared to the bigger phones. And they're going, look, maybe this is what people want now. So it's going to be really interesting to see how many people jump to this. Personally, I don't think I could go back to a small screen now after you experience like a beautiful big screen, as the Note series has always been the big screens. So I don't know if I could ever go back to anything smaller, to whatever that size is. But so otherwise, if they did the Pixel to a bigger screen, I might have just gone to a Pixel. But it's an interesting thing, right?
It is a little bit. They are lacking, modern camera technology in that Pixel phone, but they make it up in their software base. From what I've read and watched about people who have actually been using these models, so it'll be interesting to see, where Battle of the Phones gets. I really don't think, despite all the fanfare year upon year, that the big contenders like Samsung and Apple are getting the volumes that they used to get, because people are just, overwhelmed with the amount of marketing hype and models and the average cycle in Australia for most handsets is 24 months, because that's how long usually the contracts go, because most people will contract a phone. Not too many people buy them outright, although I am now going down the avenue of buying outright.
Yeah.
I think I've finally got enough under my belt that I've realized that I can choose a phone that I want and a phone plan that I want. And 12 months down the track, I can change my phone plan if my needs don't suit what that phone plan was, and I'm not stuck in situ for a full 2 years. Like, even if say a new handset comes out and it's even better than what I've got, I can just do it. I can go and buy it and not have to worry.
Yeah, I've always bought my phones outright and shopped around for the best deal. Plans are so cheap now, and there's often promotional periods thrown out. Like Kogan do 3 months for $15 or something voucher, right? So then works out to $5 a month that you're paying. And then at the end of that, then you can just swap over to some other deal for 6 months, and then you could go, then Kogan's back up with their offer. So if you're very savvy, you can just jump around to providers, and you could pay, what, $120, $100 a year if you're really savvy on your phone, if you jump around. So a lot of people can't be bothered to do that, but I've always liked that flexibility. The only time I've ever been on a phone plan, I think, was when I actually bought the Note 8, and it was just a really good deal. I think it came with like a JB Hi-Fi $500 gift card or something that I could then use instantly if I signed up to 12 months on Telstra. So then it took the $500 off the phone, and then, if it worked out that way, you factor that into the plan cost over the year. And it worked out kind of really good, and I was on Telstra for a year. So rare those come across though, but yeah, outright I definitely think is the way to go for a new phone. if you have the cash up front.
And Telstra is incentivizing people to get new iPhones on the current round of the iPhone 12 too. They're discounting the price of some planned costs for the first 12 months. So I think one of their larger plans, which would probably be in the realm of $120, $130 a month, can be about 65 or so for the first 12 months, and then it reverses back to what it originally was. So some people would find that a good incentive, but it'd be easier if you stay away from that one, I reckon, given the fact that it's only 12 of your 24 months. So if you add it all up, it's still going to cost you in the end.
That's how they get you.
They do get you. They do get you. But that's enough about iPhones. We've spent quite a bit on that.
Yeah, I mean, it
But
was a big launch, and it's it's
yeah,
Apple, so
it was a big launch. They did manage to jam the fact that they've got another one of their smart speaker variants coming out as well. Of course, the HomePod is in a mini variant now, which makes it a mini price as well. They're looking at about $149 for one of those. For the similar target market as those people who didn't get a Google Home. They got a Google Home Mini and Amazon with their Alexa technology as well. So I guess they just didn't sell as many units with the original fancy HomePod that they were looking for, and they're bringing the technology across to a more affordable variant, hoping that they'll get a few more sold this time around.
there you go.
The other big one, of course, is AMD this week announcing the Ryzen 5000 series. And this is, in their AMD AM4 architecture, and they're continuing to, I guess, allow an upscale of features and speed on the original chipset. They'll be available to buy from early November. They'll be supported by a whole raft of existing main boards, plus new ranges as well as they come around. They increase the range in terms of, upping the base clocks to, 3.8 gigahertz systems, which of course boost up to about 4.7. Price wise, they're talking from about $300 to about $800 to $900. It's more CPUs in the range. It's probably a little more than Intel is doing at the moment, and also Intel would be very hurt at this point in time by the fact that Apple has jumped off the camp, and they're going down the avenue of producing their own variant of CPU architecture like they have, some time ago now, and not being in the Intel camp. I'm excited to see the new release of these Ryzen 5000 processors, though, because I was considering the idea of, now I'm sitting in my house using my home computer a lot more than I previously had been. Now is good picking for looking at upgrading a system, because you've got, AMD's planning to do their thing. NVIDIA is doing some upping the ante as well. So there could be something out there.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely fascinating, and it's always long awaited when AMD release a new chipset or a new video card, because generally they change the game and they put the pressure on Intel and they put the pressure on NVIDIA. So this was long awaited. Like, as someone who's close to sort of upgrading, I was looking at the current Intel chips and what was on the horizon with AMD, and it became very clear that across the board everyone's like, wait for the Ryzen, the Zen 4, wait to see what happens before you don't purchase anything now. And I think they were right, because the lineup looks really good. I haven't had a chance to look in depth in sort of the benchmarking and the specs and stuff, and I don't know if reviewers have the chips yet, but on the presentation, it looked really good. Of course, it's going to look good in their own presentation, but it looked like worth the wait. There was a little bit of disappointment about the place, because they are historically a little bit more expensive than
Yes.
AMD normally release their chipsets at, because they've been quite known as, really strong performing, kind of cheaper or budget chipsets. For a really good bang for your buck company, AMD was. So they've upped the price, so people are a bit like, oh, it's too much, but it's only like $50 or something like that. For the little one, it might be a little bit more expensive as you go up the range, but I don't think they want to be seen as the budget alternative anymore. And I think this lineup is really showing that off, and they're really touting, especially their high-end chipset, saying it's going to be the best gaming performance you'll get on any chipset, and at the same time, the best productivity chip so that you're going to get. So also historically with AMD, their big pull has been the productivity sector. So the people that do a lot of video editing, are people that use a lot of CAD, like heavy processing tasks that require larger thread counts and more cores. So that plays into that strength. So all the productivity side and creative side of applications, AMD was the go. But then if you were also a gamer or enjoyed playing games on the side at really high quality graphics, or you have a 4K monitor, then you suffered some frame rate issues and you would want to go with Intel. So if you're a gamer, it was always Intel. If you're more productivity focused, you would go AMD. Now, what's really exciting with this new lineup is, I don't know how it goes across the board, but at least what they've touted at their high-end chipset is you're going to get no compromise. You're going to get the best gaming performance, and you're going to get the best productivity performance as well. And as someone who likes to play some games and also does film and video editing myself, and I'm always using Premiere or DaVinci Resolve, and the render times, trying to reduce, or After Effects, trying to reduce those render times is really appealing to me. And I was like, oh, what do I do? Do I go more AMD to reduce my render times, or do I want to go, Intel and get better frames when I'm playing games? And now if I get this high chipset, hopefully I don't need to compromise. So that, and for me, and I'm sure a lot of people out there like me, is very exciting.
They're touting figures in the 25 to 28% performance uplifts compared to their previous models in terms of, gaming with high settings. And, with the, the upgrade in the models, the fact that they're packing, a 16-core chip into a fairly reasonable price is something as well. So, I for the last 6 months, I've been building some systems, and I've gone back over to the AMD camp again, because admittedly for a little while there, given I dabble in a lot of audio and less of the gaming sort of thing, I went back across to Intel, because Intel was always, the comfortable divide to get things done and get things done fast. But it's, it's really pick and choose. You can choose your brand, because they're both equally capable for those sorts of things now. And where AMD is right now is really, it's pushing Intel, to get on with things. And I've heard, so many stories that Intel is beginning to drop the ball, and that was one of the reasons, particularly why Apple decided to jump off, because they just don't think they're where they should be right now.
Yeah, it's always been interesting. Intel's always been at the forefront of a lot of things. And it's interesting because AMD has always been seen as kind of the underdog, but now this chip could be a real game changer. And then they also have their new graphics card lineup coming. I think, is it next year? They're releasing them early next year, or Q1 next year, I think. Which is also very exciting, because as if you're into tech or gaming, you're probably be well aware of NVIDIA released their 338 or 3000 series graphics cards, and the most hyped one was the 3080, and amazing performance across the board. So it's like the biggest gain jump of any generation graphics card for a really good price point as well, like a really affordable price point, and just amazing performance across the board. The launch didn't go so smoothly. There were a lot of people reporting crashing of their video cards when playing games or heating up or doing high-end
Mm.
tasks. And few investigative people went in it and they did teardowns of the cards, and they alluded to the possible issue being in chips on the back of the card, the way they conduct in the electronics. So there's like SP caps and then MLCC caps, and there
Yeah.
was like a variation of those. So the ones that had the more MLCC ones tended to be fine, or they could handle higher clock speeds, and the ones that were
Yep.
more SP caps or had 6 SP caps, they weren't. They were crashing a lot more frequently. So there was a lot of speculation, like was the third party manufacturers to blame by choosing the wrong caps or the MLCC, which part they want to put on the card, or is it the card themselves? Like God knows what the issue is, but essentially it was when the graphics cards were boosted up over a certain clock speed,
Yeah.
they would then crash. So whether or not that was the card's internal clock, the boost up clock was higher than it should have been. Because if you've ever overclocked the graphics card, you up the megahertz, the frequency up and up and up until you get instability, and then your card crashes, and then you know to back it off. So if they do this out of the box though, and they get that tuning wrong, of course it's going to crash. Like the hardware's probably completely fine. It's just when they tuned the cards and set the clock speeds, they were a little bit off, or they set them higher than they should have been, or they were higher than the card's parts could handle, something like that. But so whenever anyone just had downclocked their cards by, I think it was like 100 megahertz or something like that, they were fine and completely stable. So I think it was definitely a clocking issue. But if you're not familiar with clocking, or you're getting this card out of the factory, you should expect it to work and be stable. You don't expect you have to then downclock your card, and then you think,
Generally
oh no,
speaking,
I paid this much for my card and I have to downclock it. But if that's not what the intended clock speed out of the factory was anyway, you're not really losing anything. But it's like that perception of, because now you've had to come in after the fact and essentially fix the clock speeds. So hopefully they're going to start, if it is a hardware issue, they'll fix it up on their end. But I very much feel like it is just purely clock speed, which they released a new driver, which is meant to address some of the stability issues. They can keep improving the driver, and then they can also then release possible firmware updates that reduce those internal clock speeds and the boosts, or people can then reduce themselves, and then new cards coming out of the factory will be at that lower spec moving forward. So it was probably the most hyped card, and of all intensive purposes, it was an amazing card and everyone wanted to get their hands on it. It was completely sold out early days, but the launch itself and the cards, not so great, not so smooth. I do feel like though, once everything's figured out, sorted out, we're starting getting cards out of the factories that have the right clock speeds, or the hardware's up to spec, it's going to be completely fine. They're probably going to be still the best card to buy this year, the 3080. But it'll be interesting to see what AMD bring out next year. I'm going to probably get the 3080, but now I'm going to be looking at the Ryzen chipsets as my chipset. So hopefully AMD can learn a lot from NVIDIA's launch and make it run a lot smoother. And if their card can be just as good as this for a cheaper price point, that's going to be amazing. If they do it just as good for the same price point, people will have options. If the launch goes a lot smoother, it'll be great. So, I mean, the only thing they could do bad is if they release the card and it's not as good as the 3080 and it's the same price, or it's more expensive.
Yeah, true.
So I think they have a really good advantage here, because they got the NVIDIA's card that they can test and compare it against for the next X amount of months, right? And then they can, based on how it performs against that flagship card, they can sort of figure out their pricing and go from there. So lots of exciting stuff happening, and I'm keen to sort of get on the upgrade bandwagon. As you said, you're also looking at potentially doing the same. And it was really interesting you say people are doing this because a lot more people are working remotely and working from home, which also could mean tax deductions.
Well, yes, you could count some of it as a tax deduction, given the fact you're doing a lot more work from home.
By the way, we're not chartered accountants, and none of this is like any sort of financial advice.
This is general discussion. It's not advice. You would consult with someone with expertise in the field if you do want to make a claim, because there are intricacies with what you can claim, how much you can claim, and the process of claiming as well, which I've learnt through my journeys. I certainly found myself claiming equipment just before I found myself in a position where I didn't have any work, because I did spend a few months working from home. I was on a laptop then. I'm back to a desktop now though.
So you're
So
going to upgrade
and
in the next 6 months, do you reckon?
I think the next 6 months is a good window to consider the idea of upgrading, because we're going to have a lot of glamorous things on the market that we can really sort of get, and it's better than what's on offer at this point in time. Although 3 months ago I probably wouldn't have I wouldn't have foreseen what was going on, and I would have been happy to just buy then. But 3 months ago I still had work, so
A lot can
a,
change,
lo-
as we know,
a,
very quickly.
a lot has been changing with COVID as well. On the gaming front, you will remember a little while ago there's been quite a bit of a stoush with Epic Games,
Mm.
and the fact that they're not all that keen with the Apple App Store.
Fortnite.
Yep, yep. Fortnite, they decided to add their own payment option. Apple didn't like it. Essentially, they withdrew them from the App Store. They tried to cut them out of their developer app as well. So far in the courts, what I'm hearing is the courts are going to hold on to any potential profits that Epic Games could get from apps in the App Store until a judgment is made. The court is not allowing it to go in either Apple or Epic's direction this minute, but Epic has joined with a few other organizations to set up the Coalition for App Fairness,
Yeah.
because they believe every day Apple taxes consumers and crushes innovation. So they've joined up with the likes of Spotify. They've got Blix, Deezer, news media in Europe as well, and that company Tile, who makes those little Bluetooth attachments that you can put on devices and track as well. And they're all potentially lobbying for some sort of fairness in Apple's charges, given, I guess, that Apple sets the rates and conditions at which people can have paid applications in the App Store, and even with some free applications as well. Apple tells their developers how they're going to do things, and these people and organizations are saying, well, enough is enough at this point in time. We want to see a bit of a change on this one. Although, given the juggernaut that Apple is, I don't think there's still going to be any budge
Yeah, why
in
would you?
where
You
they're at
own the
and where they go.
ecosystem, and if you're not on there, then you lose that market share of the Apple users. Like, they're in complete
Mm.
control, and it's just Epic wanting more money, right? And they're like taxing the
Yeah.
consumers. The consumers don't win anything from this.
No.
Epic is the only people that win, because if it's ruled in their favor, then they get all the money. So it's like, I don't like that, how they're like trying to play it off. It's better for everyone if Apple doesn't do this thing. It's better for corporations that have multi-billion-dollar games on their app store. Like, what I mean? Like, no sympathy from me here.
Both companies are going to win at the end of the day, regardless of,
Yeah.
of what the outcome is,
Yeah, the
because
world's not going to stop.
they're both money hungry organizations. Their interest is not the customer. Their interest is, which one can make more profits. So, it's interesting that they've put this little group of cronies together and tried to move forward with something. But I think it's just going to be a bit of a thing they play out for a little while, and they're going to have to just conform to what goes on if they want to keep their apps,
Yeah.
on an iOS ecosystem. So,
Speaking of
and
what you have to
mm,
do to conform, was it recently that Google, remember that whole thing with the Australian journalist Save YouTube thing, that they were popping up on YouTube for Australian people, being like, oh, we don't need to, they're asking to pay us all this out, and it's not going to be fair for whatever reason. It
The
does look
media
like,
fees, the
yeah,
organisation's being charged for, sharing news content within Australia. Yes.
well, yeah. So I believe Google now has agreed to pay the organizations for their content on YouTube and Google platforms. So it's a win for the news media, but it'll be interesting to see what that means into the future, because Google raised some points in there that was out, not just monetary, but we'll see what happens.
Well,
That's
the
just
biggest thing that these organisations were worried about was the fact that if, I guess, the government's setting the rules on who collects money and who gets charged money, they could get charged for stuff that they're just, I guess, providing through the process of aggregation. They're linking users to content that is not on their platforms, and then getting charged for it. That was their fundamental worry. But then we had the people on the other side of the camp that were saying, well, there's these big players like Rupert Murdoch, for instance, who own all these media organisations, traditional media organisations that are trying to vie for, profit. And they've had lots of losses in recent years because everything's evolving and they're not keeping up with it. And it's them lobbying for, being able to retain an unfair balance. So you've also got now people like former Prime Minister Kevin Rudd putting in a petition to lobby the government to have an inquiry into Rupert Murdoch's stranglehold of journalism in the country now. So, and that got a number of signatures while people could actually get into the system. They were having some technical issues with the government's petition platform, though, that it is currently hosted on. So,
so they should, and like it's the government's own fault for letting it get to that such a bad point, and for him to
yes.
have such a monopoly, which is ridiculous, and it's a whole
Mm,
other issue, really.
good. Anyway, one more lighter note topic.
Yes.
More contenders in the streaming gaming platform. The whole being able to open up an application, download a game and get playing and, choose any options you want. Google's doing it. We have Microsoft doing it as well with Xbox, being able to
NVIDIA were
stream on all.
doing something like with the NVIDIA Shield or something. You could.
Yeah, they were doing it too. So all of these all-you-can-eat style services, our old mates at Amazon have decided to jump on board as well because
Why not?
Amazon,
Yeah.
they do all the time. Luna is their new platform. They're looking to roll this out soon. It's in a beta testing process. They say it'll work across all platforms, including iOS devices, but they're not going to use the App Store. They're going to allow people to use it through their web browser, which is an interesting thing.
So what can
But
I
that,
play on this?
well, at the moment, they're looking games like Resident Evil 7, Far Cry 6, Assassin's Creed are jumping on board as well. That means, of course, our mates at Ubisoft are coming on board to be a part of this as
I
well.
imagine
And
most of the Ubisoft library then would be available. So essentially what it allows you to do is play a game without having a really beefy computer or a Xbox or a PlayStation.
that and not needing to go and buy the titles outright. You can just
Yeah, okay.
subscribe.
Yeah, you'd have access to. It's just interesting because Ubisoft have like a Ubisoft Premium subscription service as well, where you pay $20 a month and you have access to all their games library.
But they're looking from the fact that people who are traditionally Amazon subscribers may have
Yeah.
this option and that option set with Amazon, and they're spending like $30-$40 a month with all these different accounts so they can stream and so they can buy shit and so it's a good option for them because they've been chipping away and they're not gaining the market share, and then Amazon comes in and just takes over. So if they jump on board, they jump on the train, they're in.
It's interesting because most people that would be interested in playing video games, all these games on whatever generally tend to be, pretty savvy enthusiast people that would already have like a gaming PC, or they'd have an Xbox or a PlayStation, right? So I don't really if you're targeting gamers to play games via streaming, like these people already have consoles and already have systems and they're already playing these games. So I don't really get who their target audience is unless I'm like a hardcore gamer and I'm in a hotel somewhere and I don't have my PC with me. I can play Assassin's Creed on my phone, but the experience isn't going to be great because you don't have your big monitor in front of you. You don't have your mouse and keyboard or your controller. Like, I don't know. I just don't know who this is for.
I think with these sort of things, they usually throw the big fishing net out and try to grab all host of people and have an option for everyone rather than, just targeting one particular group of people. But, that doesn't always pay off as well. You can lose some share of your audience by trying to be everything.
Yeah.
You might as well just target the people that you really want and will give you the most money than to try and reach out and grab everyone. I understand this concept from working in media. You can't please everyone. You just can't please everyone, and it's not worth trying to please everyone because you will just drag yourself down in the group of haters that will come along and bag out your product. So we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely fascinating. It'd be interesting to see how many people adopt it. If they're just going to include it with your Amazon Prime membership, or if they're going to make
which
you
they
charge
don't right now,
extra.
because I mean, I'm a bit of an Amazon customer these days.
I wouldn't
especially
pay
now
extra for it, but if they gave it to
home.
me part of my Prime membership, I might have a look at it, and then maybe I'd use it. Then maybe I'd subscribe to. But if they do it like $20 a month, you have access to the streaming plus all the people that have signed up with this. Yeah, otherwise you'd need to pay additional for the games, I guess. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting, but I'd never use it. I really don't know anyone that would, so it'll be interesting to see how the launch goes and how it works. And you need like a good internet connection, don't you, to stream?
Yeah, well, you need a reasonable internet connection.
So
to be able
so
to
you need to
obtain
be
these
at
things.
a place with a good internet connection. So it's
Can't
not
be
like
on
you-
satellite internet in the middle
Yeah,
of rural
well, like
Australia.
if I'm
being able
in
to
a
get it to work.
hotel though, like if I'm in a hotel and I just want to play some games, it's probably not going to work.
Not on the hotel Wi-Fi.
Yeah, so like if I'm just sitting at home, I'm gonna have some sort of system. Anyway, it's gonna be. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. When are we gonna expecting a launch? Do we know?
It's in beta testing at the moment,
Right,
so
it could be
it'll
any
be a
point
couple
from
of months
now
down the track.
till 10 years from now. We'll keep you posted.
Like you said, if it does become something that's bundled with, Prime membership, it could be very enticing. But if it's like Audible, for instance, where they want to sell it as a different product, even though you're already an Amazon customer, I've gotten rid of those subscriptions because you end up paying like $30-$40 for all of these different things that you should theoretically just pay one fee and have access to all of them.
Even if you up it from what is it, $6.99 or something a month to like $10 a month, and then you include Audible and everything, right? Even if it's like $15 a month and you include
15 to be
everything, you get the game streaming, you get Audible, you get Amazon Prime, you get the fast shipping. Like, why not? You get the streaming, you get the Twitch link, whatever. Why not? $15. More people would do it for sure if you got all that stuff, include like one Audible credit a month for $15 a month. Buy a book. Why not? Yeah. Anyway, we'll email Amazon and we'll put our ideas forward and we'll let you know how it goes. So those are the major headlines of the week, the big stories that we tend to take a little bit of a deep dive into and really flesh out, unpack, and explore. But there are often quite a lot of headlines that come out throughout the week that are just the headlines, really. There's no real substance to the story. The story is essentially in the headline, and we like to share those with you each and every week, and it's a little segment we call Quick Headlines. These are the quick headlines. These are the quick technology headlines of the week. Geddes, give me some quick headlines. Yeah. All right, so the first quick headline of the week: Google introduces song matching via humming, whistling, or singing. So now you can just hum at your phone because often so many times you're like, oh, what was that song? It's like right?
He's got Hanson stuck in his
And then
head. I've put up with this for
oh,
more
that's
than
what
an
it
hour
is.
now.
So if I didn't know, I'd just be like, and then Google would tell me what the song is. So that's cool. So
And
I'm keen to try
Spotify will
that.
as well.
Yeah, well, there you go. Here's an interesting one that I don't think anyone cares about anymore. Snapchat launches its TikTok rival Sounds on Snapchat.
Snap what?
Snapchat. Does
Isn't
anyone even
TikTok where
use?
it's at now?
Does anyone even use Snapchat anymore? It's long dead. They're trying to like hang on. They're like at the bottom of the cliff. Like, don't forget about me. That's them falling down the cliff.
Somewhere below Instagram.
No one uses Snapchat anymore. Like, don't even bother trying voices. What is that? No one's going to use it. No one. We were talking about Triller before, trying to rival TikTok. No one's using that. No one's using your Snapchat voices. Give it up.
No one's using Triller because just a week or so ago, some American guy hummed along to bloody Fleetwood Mac Dreams. And now he is, he's been sponsored by the company that he was drinking juice of now. And everyone else wants to be like him. And that's
so
TikTok.
stupid.
Like the eco-cycle.
It's so dumb. I hate it so much. It makes me so angry. Anyway, Tesla. We love Tesla, don't we?
Electric Jesus.
We love him. We love him every week.
Jesus.
Yes, every week we'll talk about him from now until eternity because he's great. He's what a good guy. Anyway, Tesla to begin production on 7-seat Model Y in November with deliveries in early December. That's ambitious, isn't it?
It is a little bit ambitious, given the fact that he's got a history of, being a little bit behind the mark with where the releases have got to, given, unprecedented demand for the vehicles and all the battery technology stuff that we've talked about before as well. Like, I don't think they're going to be there.
So, the big family car, right? The big soccer mum Tesla, rock up with all the kids in the back of and carpool to soccer practice.
You'd have to have a reasonable wallet for that one as well.
Yeah, I don't know how much it's going to be. I imagine quite expensive. It'll be over $100,000 in Australia. That's
for sure. I mean, look at the current models; they're in the 90 to 100,000.
One day, Geddes. One day.
Eventually.
Virgin Galactic. Remember those guys? Richard Branson wanting to launch a space flight. Virgin Galactic readies first space flight from Spaceport America for later this fall.
And he's one of the many groups that are really getting into space development and movements.
What was that other one? It's like blue something. And is it? There's one other one. Is it like Airbus or something, or Boeing, or?
I can't remember.
We'll bring that onto your quick head next week. I'll save this one to last because it's really good. This is an interesting one. Microsoft makes remote work option permanent, and Dropbox is the latest San Francisco tech company to make remote work permanent also. So we've got Microsoft and Dropbox and probably a slew of other tech companies also going to follow suit into this changing era that we live in.
Toshiba has done it as well in the last 6 months. They've at least mobilized their workforce in terms of being able to spend time out of the office for at least half of their units. So it's looking really good for some companies. Really looking good.
Yeah, and it's going to be really interesting because I was reading another article that said, if you work for a big tech company and they make remote working permanent, you can then get your epic San Francisco salary and then move out to somewhere a lot cheaper and still get paid the same. But that's a bit dodgy, and I feel like they're going to adjust salaries based on the location you're working from, right? Because why would they still be paying this person like $200,000 a year, $300,000 a year, and they're paying like $2 a week in rent? But at the same time, it's the same person doing the same role, same job. The company's getting the same productivity out of this person. They should be unless the valuation of a salary is got to be based on also where you're based and the rent and the living expenses of the area to compensate, right? Like where do you draw that line, and who's going to go, oh yeah, you can move out to Alabama if you, but then you'll get paid like 80 grand a year less.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not sure where that's going to go. I know there are some workforces here in Australia that are finally acknowledging that remote work can be done anywhere. Um, in customer support roles, at least at a minimum.
Do you worry about this big move to remote work and statements like that jobs will get offloaded overseas to third world countries, or typical call center countries like India or the Philippines or Malaysia, where they have
Well,
really skilled people, right, that could develop whatever you need to do remotely, but the wages are significantly less, therefore potentially
well,
less Australian jobs. Does that worry you?
no,
No,
not here in Australia. I'm noticing just from the people I know and I guess the interest in the sectors that I've had, that it's going back the other way again. Workforces like Optus. Optus is, they've done the work from home thing for the last 6 to 8 months. They've realised that it's working good for their budgeting, and they're also finding that some of their workforce back in Australia would be well desired, and they're starting to rehire people. You've got the likes of Australia Post looking to step away a little bit, just a bit, from their traditional contact hubs that they've got in places like Melbourne, and allow uh, you know, people to sit in work at home positions from around, regional Victoria, for instance, to be able to handle the volume of inquiries, because they've been bashed around, with COVID, with the way that some of their distribution hubs are working, and they need more customer support roles to keep things in tow. And a couple of web hosting companies have made sure that they've brought the majority of their customer support back into onshore again. And work from home gives them that flexibility to have the kind of rostered workforce they need, have the skilled people, and maybe make it a little bit more relaxing to the employee to be able to not have to commute and be constrained by the hours of operation, and what they get out of it as well. And I think personally, there'll be impacts to wages, because some organizations and some sectors certainly count what they have to factor in for people to travel to the workplace and conduct their work. But here in Australia, at least for the meantime, I don't think it's going to be too major. I had a look at a position recently which was in a work from home mode, and it still seemed desirable, even though it was probably a little bit lower than what I'd seen for some of those type of roles, because I knew the factor of being able to just get out of bed in the morning, have a shower, get your breakfast, and then set up your computer in your room, in a room, like I have a separate space for doing that sort of thing, and you can close the door and then get started on the workday. But know that you haven't got to commute to the place. You haven't got the car maintenance expenses. You're eating cheaper because generally you're eating at home. So there's pluses and minuses to it all. But I really think there's a bit of an increase in work from home as a permanent option now for a few people, and there's organisations that are certainly looking at making sure that a few industries start looking at it as a full term goal as well.
That went a lot deeper than a quick headline.
It did. It did. Sorry. Sorry,
Anyway,
I took it and ran.
the final headline of the week, and probably my favorite. That's why I saved the best for last here. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
Give it to me.
The U.S. Army trials augmented reality goggles for dogs.
Yeah. What? I thought you were going to say it was like some sort of training thing or something because, I mean, they have been doing augmented reality training, and he pulls out his augmented reality goggles and starts looking
This
around like he's looking into them.
strapped onto a dog's face.
But what are they going to read their brain or something while they're
No,
doing it?
so the idea behind it was
Mm.
the army uses dogs all the time for risky situations or to sniff out bombs or look, what's that up ahead, or can you go down this alley? So the reason they're doing the goggles is because all those gestures are either done by hand command signals or voice command signals. Now, obviously, like if you're trying to be covert or trying to maybe suss out an area, or you don't know what's behind a certain thing, you want to be able to send the dog in, but then at a certain point you're going to lose communication with that dog because the dog will lose line of sight of you, won't be able to see the hand signal. You don't want to maybe shout, or maybe it's too far away to shout. The reason for the goggles, they have them trained and then they receive the commands via the goggles on their head. So whether or not they also have like an earpiece or something to receive audible commands, but from what I get, it's a visual cue. So then the commanders of the dogs, they can still visually cue the dog to either keep going, turn left, sniff there, stop there, come back through the goggles. How cool is that?
That's very neat.
Dogs are amazing.
Well, animals are amazing. Like some people think animals are dumb, but you own one and you learn the intricacies of what you can teach them and how they can learn to communicate with you, and yeah, it's possible. It will take some development with these animals, but it will certainly be something.
So cool. And that's it. That is the quick headlines for the week.
That was a warm and fuzzy ending.
Yeah,
to
it's always good to end on a good animal story.
But yeah, fantastic show. Back into it again. Little bit of a bump between it, but life hurts sometimes. It's
just blame COVID.
You
can blame COVID and get away with everything.
Everyone's blaming COVID for everything at the moment. So yeah, let's blame COVID. It's all good. It's techwrap.net, the website. You can find us on all the great podcasting platforms. And if you're like me, you often stream your music using Spotify. So you can listen to TechWrap on there as well. And then you don't need to have any extra applications, and you can have it on all your devices. I wave around because I've got like a computer in front of me and I'm on a laptop.
It's where it should be. And you should set your homepage to techwrap.net.
And you can get us on Facebook as well. We're on there. We're on Twitter. We're on Instagram. We don't do much on Instagram at the moment.
I'll put up the photo of the dog with the goggles.
Do it.
Yeah,
do it. It's been great to share this with you again. It's TechWrap signing out.
Yeah.
With the latest in technology news and views, this is TechWrap, the podcast.